what I'm going to be doing is taking this welding rod and then just kind of bending it so that it gives me more of an idea and at least a little bit cleaner of a cut line than just doing it by hand, because I'm personally not that great at that. So it's going to follow along the lines of something like that right there. The other thing that you need to remember is that when you go to cut this, you really want to find out the height of the inner fender well, and that is the max height that you want to cut, because even if you cut higher, you're still going to hit the inner tire well. So there's no point in going higher than that. So be advised if you are going to do that, unless you're going for some crazy super low kind of thing, like sitting on your frame, then you have to do something with that. But so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this welding rod and tape one end. I'm gonna throw it on this side about where the kit actually meets up to the fender liner. I'm gonna call that there. Now all the way around this, I'm going to be taping and molding exactly where I want it to go. Which, actually, that right there looks pretty damn good. Maybe more along the lines of that. But that's the general idea of this. I will say it's definitely easier to put it onto the welding rod itself first. That way it just holds it a little bit more, and then you can do fine adjustments from there. I think that's exactly where I want that, so just a couple more pieces of tape so it doesn't move. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so this is basically where we need to trim for the back of the fender flare. I want to say it's here, but if I start about there, follow all the way up, it's a pretty nice, simple band. Now, again, this is going to be hidden, because even when I cut this, I have to cut the inner fender well and then actually pull it up and then weld and seam seal all of that. So going and looking at the other car, what we did previously is we cut it down about 3 inches from the top. This one is just slightly above that. But to be on the safe side, I'm gonna bring it down a little bit lower, because I mean, that's pretty high. So all I'm gonna do is I'm going to just bring these in slightly. Actually, I might be able to do it just by doing that. But I'm gonna bring this one down just until it hits, let's say 2 1/4, and then we'll go from there. Looking at that, we're actually at 2 3/4 here. I'm gonna call that because, I mean, it's a slam build. I don't really care about this car anyway, so we're just gonna send it. Now, what I'm gonna do is the same thing along the top, and I'm gonna use a marker just to mark out where I wanna roughly cut it. After that, what we'll do is we'll use a angle grinder just to get the hole started, and then we're going to use a low vibration reciprocating saw, and then we're gonna cut all of that out. Once that's out, it's gonna be 2 panels that we're gonna have to merge together. I'll probably tack weld them and then seal them all up with just seam sealer. It's a lot easier. You could cut out a piece of metal and then weld the entire thing. A lot of people do that. I don't have time. This car needs to be up and running ASAP, so I'm just gonna seam seal it. And then there we have our cut line. Now again, what you could do is come in here and freehand this. Again, I'm not very good at doing this, but just gives you a rough idea of where you need to cut. So we'll make a little notch right here with a angle grinder just to get the saw in there, and we'll cut all that out. But first, before we do that, I'm gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. this is going to be the guide hole that we are going to be using for the air saw. Again, I'm actually just going to be following this line. I redid this line over here. I like the arch to come out a little bit, just in case if, let's say, you know, I did end up wanting to go to way more slammed or something like that. Not that I think that this tire would ever get that high. I like the idea of having a little bit more clearance back there. But everything still lines up, so what we're gonna do is hook up the air compressor, the air saw, and then we're gonna trim this out, the inner and outer. So this is the distance that I currently have until that back wall. It's not a lot. So one thing that you could do is you could angle this, and that might help you out a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can get it. That's the other thing. You also know that when you're hitting it, if you can see the blade bending like that. Now, one of the main reasons why you don't want to push through to that back side is because that back, or the tire well, which is behind that, that's what you're going to be pressing up and matching up to this to make it watertight. So just take your time, slowly go at it. So now that that's off, the only thing that's really holding these bottom two pieces together are actually seam sealer. So what you can do is you can pry your hands in there, but again, that might damage it. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'll probably come in here with like a screwdriver and try and pry this thing out and get that up. As you can see, that's the two layers that I was talking about that normally covers. So now that this is tucked back, what I can do is I can trim this up to, like, let's say here, all the way across, make a couple relief cuts, and then bend that up to match with that. But other than that, you notice we have some rust there, which we have a little bit there too. But so now I just need to pull this off, trim this up again, and then basically clean it, get it ready for welding and seam sealing. These are BCs, stock BCs, that are completely slammed, like as far down with preload. We're gonna be getting a little bit more room for travel. I'm gonna trim this again. I'm gonna try and follow this little line right before it curves, and you know, I could always trim it up later if it's too much, but that should give me a good line to go from there. You know, it's really amazing. As soon as you don't care about a car, you can just mutilate it really fast. So all I did is I came through, I tack weld a few places just to give a little bit of rigidity. Now what I'll end up doing is I'll come back through and I'll seam seal all of this and then cover it, and then that's it.